1 followed by 500 zeros. String theory dictates there are that many possible realities happening right now. I believe the one in which you're listening to me right now is the only one where Robert Griffin III is not a Hall of Famer.
RG3, these words came out of my mouth, is going to put on a show. Young RG3 in his rookie year is having the same kind of impact on games that Brady does, and Breeze does, and Peyton does, and even your guy, the bad man Aaron Rodgers does. Joining the MVP race yesterday was RG3.
And then as he goes down, but as he's trying to get it here, you see that knee go.
Hindsight being 2020, I would have never played the rest of that year. People will say, hey, well, it was tough, it was brave. Yeah, I got it, but it was stupid. And that's just the bottom line, and it altered my career.
I'm going to show you 3 alternate realities to prove my point. Each is wildly different, and each changes the entire landscape of the NFL. One has Jim Harbaugh wrestling his brother in front of millions of people. One has Mike McDaniel becoming the Tom Wambsgans of the NFL. One has Russell Wilson becoming the President of the United States. But there is one constant: RG3 in a gold jacket in Canton, Ohio. Because make no mistake, in a different era with different injury luck, RG3 should have been a Hall of Famer. Don't believe me? Follow me into the Robert Griffin III verse. Welcome to Earth 305, Dale. In this universe, the 2012 Miami Dolphins coaching search did not end with Joe Philbin. It ended with Chip Kelly. So, instead of leaving for the Eagles in 2013 like he did in our universe, Chip is the lead guy in Miami in 2012. There were rumors that both Miami and Washington were interested in trading up for the number 2 pick in 2012. On Earth 305, Chip successfully convinced Dolphins ownership to do it because he's got a type. From 2007 to 2012, these were his quarterbacks at Oregon: Dennis Dixon, Jeremiah Masoli, Darren Thomas, and then Marcus Mariota was on his way in. They all led the conference in rushing yards as a quarterback. Chip Kelly and RG3 is the perfect marriage in that first year in Miami because of 3 words: run, pass, option. It's a phrase that's incorrectly used every single weekend when we watch football, and it's a huge part of why RG3 would get into the Hall of Fame in any universe, but especially in Earth 305. So let's explain the difference between an RPO and a zone read, because they're not the same. For a zone read, we're just looking at the edge defender. Has nothing to do about passing the ball. If he crashes down with the running back, RG3's pulling it. If he gets upfield to defend against RG3's legs, he's handing the ball off right here. RG3 can still throw it on a zone read once he pulls this ball. If the linebacker crashes down, then maybe you spit it out to the Y. But that's not an RPO. In an RPO, you can still have the same route concept out here, but RG3 is not looking to run the ball. He's still reading this linebacker. The linebacker's tucked inside the box and you have numbers on the outside, you can spit it out. If the linebacker's drifting this way and that's a light box, well, then you can hand it off. You can still pass the ball in a zone read, but a zone read is not the same thing as an RPO. So we know in our universe that RG3 torched the NFC East with Kyle Shanahan's run-pass option and won Offensive Rookie of the Year with Washington. Then Chip Kelly took it to a whole new level in 2013 with Michael Vick and ran an RPO-heavy offense that also ran on turbo tempo. Turbo tempo was just a fun way to say they ran no huddle and snap the ball every 22 seconds. Those 2 things, the RG3 RPO and the turbo tempo, came together on Earth 305 like a Cuban link and Rick Ross. It was beautiful. The Dolphins didn't win the division that first year because, well, a guy by the name of Tom Brady. They do get into the wild card slot and actually beat Houston though, but the evil empire was waiting in the next round. RG3 was stopped by injury with Washington in our timeline, but I don't want to ignore the fact that teams also adjusted to his style of play. They mugged his receiver, forced him to pull the ball down. The field got smaller, the margins got tighter. The same thing happened on Earth 305, but without the injury. And with Chip, we know that after his Eagles offense lit the league on fire in 2013 in our universe, teams just stopped trying to substitute altogether to try to keep up with this turbo tempo. Instead, they played more nickel and kept 2 deep safeties on the field. His spacing shrunk, his simplicity turned to predictability. They didn't fare much better in Earth 305. By the start of the 2014 season, much of RG3's magic and Chip Kelly's blur offense had been decoded, and it is a rough season for the Dolphins. They just missed the playoffs and the vibes are not great. But the big difference with Earth 305, RG3 and Chip Kelly evolve. They don't stall out, they add layers. Chip doesn't let Reggie Bush go to Detroit. He re-signs him and keeps him paired up with Lamar Miller. They don't have a first-round pick in 2013 and don't pick until the late seconds. So instead of drafting Zach Ertz like he did in our universe, Chip picked the next best pass-catching tight end who can play up-tempo. A work in progress out of Cincinnati named Travis Kelce. Then Coach Kelly convinces Ryan Day to join his staff as OC in 2014. They start attacking the middle of the field in the passing game. They still went and got Jarvis Landry in the 2014 draft. It's him and Mike Wallace split out wide. Then when they finally get their first-round pick in 2015, Chip gets his Oregon guy, Eric Armstead. Congratulations, you just met the key pieces of the 2016 Super Bowl champs, the Miami Dolphins, on Earth 305. I'd love to spend more time here, but I got 3 more universes to show you. Follow me to Earth 18. The butterfly wing flapping that changed everything in this universe happened on December 26, 2010. In our universe, the Rams beat the 49ers that day by 1 score. Mike Singletary was fired after the game. The Seahawks end up winning the NFC West despite a sub-500 record, and your boy was at the game to witness Beastquake. But on Earth 18, the Niners take the Rams to overtime, they eke out the win, they make the playoffs, and they go on a run to the NFC Championship game to save Mike Singletary's job. So, Stanford head coach Jim Harbaugh didn't leave Stanford for the open NFL job right down the road. Instead, he stays and makes sure Stanford doesn't lose to Oregon in 2011. Harbaugh, Andrew Luck, and the Cardinal got a shot at the national championship in 2012 against LSU and lost in heartbreaking fashion. Heartbreaking enough for Luck to run it back for his redshirt senior year despite being the consensus #1 overall pick. The Colts still move on from the Sheriff. They're still picking #1 overall in the 2012 draft with a relatively loaded roster. But with the announcement of Andrew Luck returning to Stanford, it's not his name at the top of the board. It's Robert Griffin III. In his rookie year with the Colts, Bruce Arians adapts his offense to RG3. He still wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, but the Colts come up short against the eventual Super Bowl champion Ravens in the playoffs. John Harbaugh still gets his ring like he did in our timeline. But on Earth 18, he has to share the spotlight with his brother because Stanford wins it all. 2 brothers are college and NFL champions, and they're everywhere. But Jim is better with the media, so he's getting the lion's share of the deals and attention. Partly out of spite, partly because their dad coached there when they were growing up, John takes the open Michigan job. Jim sees this as the ultimate betrayal. Michigan and Stanford meet in the Rose Bowl in 2013, and during the pregame, the Harbaugh brothers take their shirts off and wrestle midfield, and by the end of the match, they're hugging. The beef is squashed. But let's get back to the man this whole video is about. Like Luck in our universe, RG3 has to deal with his offensive coordinator Bruce Arians leaving. Finding his replacement made Colts head coach Chuck Pagano spiral out of control. Luck could adapt to any scheme. RG3 needed someone specific. Chuck didn't know the RPO game, and no one from his tree did. They had a roster ready to win now, and the pressure was on. He holed himself up in his office for 6 days, peeing in Gatorade bottles, scouring film from every new age offense he could find until he finally signed East Carolina versus UAB. He came out of his office dazed, didn't even meet with anybody, but called a press conference. With bags under his eyes, Pagano announced that the Indianapolis Colts' next offensive coordinator would be 29-year-old Lincoln Riley. Everybody was shocked when he announced it, and even more shocked when it worked. Riley didn't have much experience, but he was one of the most forward-thinking coaches when it came to meshing air raid passing concepts with pro-style run concepts. He didn't have the physical talent under center to run everything he wanted to at ECU. RG3 fixed that. Air raid is all about finding grass, option routes, and quick reads. Few were better at that than Reggie Wayne. Nobody could keep up with T.Y. Hilton on crossing routes when RG3 decided to toss it. And most impactfully, Pagano gave Riley the keys to draft his own line. Going off a tip from his Big 12 friends, Lincoln took David Bakhtiari in the 2013 draft. Then tapped in with his Gulf Coast connections and was sold on Trey Turner in 2014. Finally, in 2015, after hitting big twice, he has the confidence to pull the trigger in the 6th round on a project tackle out of Florida named Trent Brown. In our universe, the Colts had talent at skill positions, but couldn't protect their new franchise quarterback. Andrew Luck was sacked over 40 times in 2 different seasons. It had dire consequences. With Riley's 3 picks in the trenches, the Earth 18 Colts fixed that problem, and his O-line earned the nickname the Hoosier Bruisers. RG3 was able to develop behind them. Riley was given time and space to innovate around them. That line in ensured a Colts dynasty. And Tom Petty was able to see the first of 4 Indianapolis championship parades before he left us in 2017. Earth 18 is an awesome spot, but there is one last universe for us to get to. The moment that changed everything on Earth 100 is a single act of kindness in 1974. A school custodian sees a 10-year-old Dan Snyder crying. The child has been busted for running a pyramid scheme involving candy bars, but the janitor didn't know that. He asked the boy what was wrong, helped him to his feet, and got him feeling better about his life. Now, I'd like to tell you Dan Snyder became a kind and empathetic person after that day, but there's no universe where that's the case. But he never forgot that janitor. So when it came time in 2009 to pay the staff to maintain the new Latitude 36 Bermuda grass he installed at FedEx Field, he did what he normally never did. He paid workers a fair wage. The dude didn't cheap out. The field, which was state-of-the-art grass at the time in both universes, was actually kept up nicely on Earth 100 by a full staff of maintenance workers. You get where this is heading. So, the horrific injury that negatively impacted RG3 so significantly doesn't happen in this universe. Instead, Washington wins their 8th straight game in that wild card round against Seattle. In the next round, Atlanta was waiting. Atlanta struggled with Russell Wilson on the ground in our timeline. They had the 21st ranked rushing defense, but the Falcons were still able to get out of there with a 2-point win. On Earth 100, RG3 doesn't let that happen. Washington gets ahead and then just bleeds clock. Alfred Morris feasts. Roddy White, Julio Jones, and Matt Ryan can't get on the field often enough to make up the difference. So Washington, not Atlanta, meets the Niners in the NFC Championship on Earth 100. Mike McDaniel, riding a wave of confidence from the Atlanta game, installs something he had jotted down on a subway napkin called cheap motion. On our Earth, he wasn't able to get this installed until Miami hired him. On Earth 100, it gives Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman fits. Their heads are spinning and they can't get out to the flats. Now, Washington ends up in the Super Bowl against the Ravens, a team they had already beat in Week 13 that same season. Ray Lewis couldn't keep up with Kaepernick in our universe during that game. He definitely couldn't handle a healthy RG3. That is how Robert Griffin III becomes the first rookie quarterback to win a Super Bowl on Earth 100. Obviously, Mike Shanahan isn't fired in 2013 then. He's able to keep that legendary coaching staff together for 3 more years. In a budding rivalry, the Legion of Boom gets the better of Washington the next season and wins it all. Washington takes round 3. They decide to let RG3 and Alfred Morris run the option at the 2-yard line instead of passing, and they ruin New Englanders' dreams of another dynasty. The next season, Cam Newton and RG3 have one of the greatest MVP races of all time. Cam takes the trophy, but RG3 takes the NFC Championship. Instead of riding off into the sunset, Peyton Manning has to watch Mike Shanahan raise the trophy for the 3rd time in 4 years. Before every one of those years, Shanahan hinted to his staff that he might be ready to retire if only he could just find the right replacement. Kyle grounded himself into the ground in an effort to prove he deserved it as the eldest boy, but the overwork drove him crazy. Sean McVay always kept the vibes light, but Shanahan worried about him being taken seriously. Raheem Morris was the most capable, but he was untested. Nobody noticed Mike McDaniel just kept getting closer and closer to the big man, until eventually, after retiring with the most Super Bowl wins by a head coach ever in 2017, Mike Shanahan announces that Mike McDaniel will take over as a co-head coach with an absolute outsider. There were a lot of rumors about him eyeing the position, but it's Deion Sanders and Mike partnered up at the top of the new Washington regime. The power struggle was chaotic, but RG3 believes in Mike McDaniel's system and timing. He's rewarded with 4 MVP trophies and another 2 Super Bowls. It all comes to an end in 2027 when it's time for him to pass down the reins of the franchise to a young Shador Sanders. Earth 100, what a place to be. I actually got a bonus universe we can take a look at if you guys want to. Let's just say, back in the day, Baylor loses to Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. If you recall, that Missouri game was a 42-39 game. That Kansas game went to OT. Oklahoma would have been that 3rd one in that stretch and was also a 1-score game, 45-38. Let's say RG3 still gets concussed versus Texas Tech, and instead of risking it versus Texas, with less to play for, he decides to sit out to not risk himself. With those 3 losses instead, he doesn't have that, hey, big-time performance of those big moments. Baylor's brand isn't as strong, and let's say RG3 drops to the 3rd round where Russell Wilson was picked. RG3 goes to Seattle. That bumps Russ down to Philadelphia where Nick Foles went. He becomes the Super Bowl hero and sustains success better than Foles did. The whole Philly environment breaks him down a little bit more, and he's forced to just be a little bit more real than he was in Seattle. With 2 Super Bowl rings, the Philly fans check on his goofy Russ-isms, his obsession with his brand, and an incorrigible ego, he dominates politics. He first becomes a senator in Pennsylvania, and then eventually, the President of the United States. Alright, goal. Get more serious about why we started on this. It's sad that an incredible career that would have been incredible for the individual and brought joy to all of us watching was cut short. All because a dude devalued blue-collar work and didn't give a shit about his players. RG3 should have been a Hall of Famer. Come on, Dan Snyder.